a comedy game design podcast by two guys who know nothing about comedy nor game design. I'm Trevor Scott, and with me, as always, is Ben Slinger.
Yes, I am. And Trevor, we are quickly rounding on our 300th episode.
A lot quicker than what I was expecting. So, I don't know what we're doing for 300. As I said, we may just skip 300 for a few weeks, and then we'll come back to it.
We'll see. We have not decided.
Maybe 300 we'll do at PAX. That could be a bit of fun.
Save 300 for PAX. Yeah, that's not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. But tonight, we are not at 300. We're at 298, I believe. And I actually have some ideas to pitch tonight that I thought we could talk about.
We're just gonna breeze over the fact that last week's episode was a weird one. That we got hold of that.
Yeah, we got a hold of that interesting pilot of that reality TV show. I don't think the reason we were able to get it is because they weren't able to do more than one episode because that they essentially rushed out Cross Stitch Hero and just tanked.
Which is surprising because
couldn't really stretch it into a full season. But
that Janet, she had some great ideas. She was my favorite character.
I kind of like Jamal.
No, Jamal was pretty cool.
When he was quiet, but when he spoke up, he really had something to say.
Oh, we forgot to say we had full video of this thing. Jamal was the coolest cat, and he was on screen all the time.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of couldn't take your eyes off him.
Yeah.
But anyway, go back and listen to that episode if you missed it. It is quite interesting. Maybe we'll see if that production company has done anything else in future. Maybe we'll get our hands on other episodes where they've gone into other game companies. That'd be kind of fun. But no, tonight we're going to do some of our usual game design, improvised game design sort of stuff. I had some ideas this week that I wanted to bring up with Trevor, and he doesn't know anything about them except that they are
factory games,
sort of factory automation type games, along the lines of like a Satisfactory or a Factorio, or they're becoming more and more popular. Dyson Sphere Program.
I need to actually have a bit of a play of Dyson Sphere Program. I've heard good things.
Pretty good. I haven't gone that far into it. It's a bit of a slow start, but I like some of the ways that they're built. So I have three different sort of ideas. They're not full-fledged games or anything, but that's why I'm bringing them here. So the first one is essentially a tower defense game.
Okay.
But to build and move the towers, you are automating systems in some way. So I'm thinking that this is probably, a relatively more simple game than a lot of the factory games out there. It's not necessarily that you're going through many, many tiers of products and things that you're building, but I think you've at least got raw materials that you're extracting in some way, building conveyors or whatever to combine them into constructors, and then you can tell those constructors to build particular types of towers, and then you have to send those towers to their destination along conveyors. Yeah. Or you could potentially even have they stay on the conveyors forever and are attacking the enemies as they move around. What
I do like about that you have to deliver them to a location is then the conveyors can actually restock them with ammo.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea, actually.
Because what I like is you kind of say, okay, this is where I want to put it. So you gotta have the conveyor doing that. Yep. But then once the conveyor sort of drops it off the back, then it's got a spot in there to drop ammo into the back of it.
Yep.
And drop, if you want to upgrade it, you have to send the upgrade components down the conveyor.
Yep.
And I almost like the idea that each of these towers are actually self-sufficient in the fact that, once they're there, everything just comes in via the conveyor.
Yeah.
If you're sending down, say, upgrade components via the conveyor, you may actually need to protect those components on the conveyor along the way because, this is high value targets and there may be some.
Okay. Yeah. I like the idea of, you put some high value, upgrade components on the conveyor and then it's okay, and now put a tower on the conveyor and that tower as it goes will protect them. So as you're saying that, I had an idea, which is not exactly along the same lines, but what if to build anything, you had to send it out along your conveyors, including the conveyors themselves. Yep. So essentially you have just one fucking object, one building that can spit things out, and you can maybe put it in any of the spots, put them in any of the spots around you. But you have no way of drawing out a conveyor, you have to say, put a straight conveyor out that way. Okay. And it just plonks there because there's nowhere else for it to go. Okay. Put another straight conveyor out there. It goes along that first conveyor and then plonks at the end. And essentially you're building up these conveyors by sending out other conveyor blocks until eventually you maybe put something at the end, whether it is a tower or whatever, send a tower out along it. That could be an interesting little twist on how you build out your factory.
You can draw out, like, this is what I actually want to do with these things. You draw it out, but the way that, like, the conveyor gets built is that you go, okay, I want to do the conveyor that it's, this many long, and then it turns here, and then it becomes this many long, and it puts down the pieces, and automatically when it gets to the end, it just drops off the end.
I guess it depends on, I think there are two ways you can do it. If you're going more, like, if you're doing that first tower defense game, then you probably still want to be able to draw them out. And, like, then it's almost more of just a visual and logistical thing of that everything's developed here and it has to go along the conveyors to get there. I think there's room for almost a different sort of game, though, where it's almost an arcadey thing. It almost gives me Tetris vibes in a way, or something like that, where it's like, what am I building next? What's the next piece that I'm sending out along the conveyor? And if you make a mistake, well, you just have to live with that mistake and try to correct it, right? Like, it's like, oh shit, I didn't mean to send out a left turn. I meant to send out a right turn because, my orientation was off because the conveyor's already heading in that direction at the end. And so now I have to do a loop and, essentially building out this factory in real time, reacting to things, but just one piece at a time. Could be kind of cool, as its own little arcadey kind of thing.
Yeah. I quite like that idea, and just the general feel of a tower defense game that maybe a little bit slower paced. Like, yeah.
I think if we go back to the tower defense thing, I think that is a little bit more slower paced. You've got waves of enemies that are coming down either at least like through bottleneck sort of things, or because in the classic Flash ones they'd come along a very specific path or whatever. But then you've got things like I can't even remember what they're called now, but where it's more open and you just get swarms of them coming in, and but they're going to come from this direction or that direction or whatever.
What I can sort of see is, if ammo management becomes a little bit more of a thing of, you've now got to go, okay, so we need to upgrade this. Well, we've got the only type of conveyor going out to this particular tower is a type 1, which is very slow, but it can handle, the big bulky objects and that sort of stuff. But if you put put the bigger stuff on the faster stuff, it can actually topple off. Like, and so you need someone
or there's just a weight limit on it or something. Like, the type 2s can go over like up terrain or something, but they can't take heavy stuff, versus the type 1s, which can, but they, you can't raise them up or something. Having those sorts of limitations to really be strategic around, around where you put conveyors.
And I like the idea that, these are smart conveyors in that they can automatically sort of split things off. If you say that you want, if you say, I want, this to make it over to here and it has to go down, you can sort of draw the path that you want it to go.
Yeah,
it'll automatically go there.
Because I do like there being a little bit of almost plate spinning sort of thing of, it's like, okay, I need to get a tower, over to there, and I want it to like go off the side of the conveyor at that point, that you have to wait until it's there and maybe like click on it to say, okay, deploy it off to that side. And then it will take ammo or whatever off that conveyor that it's next to. But that you can't just set it and forget it. You kind of have to be like, all right, it's going to take, 20 seconds for it to go along those, because it has to be the type 1s, because towers are heavy or whatever. I'm doing other stuff over here, like trying to figure out other things. So I need to remember and keep an eye on
I'm researching ammo so that I can
whatever
build it in bigger lots. And
it's like, shit, it went past where I wanted it to go. Is it like, do I deploy it here? Do I let it go to the end? Do I, having to make those decisions and sort of deal with your mistakes to the best of your ability.
Yeah.
It's cool.
Because Satisfactory is in a 3D, first-person style, I do like the idea of seeing the ammo going off and being able to sort of build your conveyor belts in, rather spaghetti ways.
Maybe. I actually feel like this one, and out of all my ideas, this is the only one that could work in 2D, but I feel like this could maybe be a bit more of a, either a 2D or just like an isometric 3D or something.
I like the idea of having it
overhead sense of where they're coming from, where your like attack zones are.
I think you could actually do sort of like a hybrid that when you're sitting in your back tower, then it goes to like an overarching view. And then you can just get out and sort of have a play with.
I guess my only
anytime that you're actually doing things with the conveyors and that sort of stuff, you're having to do it from down the bottom. You can plan it out from up the top, but then when you're actually doing the work, you're like, okay, I want it to go here. And then when you get back in, you go, oh no, I needed it to be one more block back. And so you got that sort of disconnect.
There's something to be said for the disconnect between your overhead planning and then being on the ground to do it.
Yeah.
That's almost just another a feature in
it's
itself
like
that could be interesting.
It's a spatial awareness.
Yeah. But I feel like the benefit, because so much of what we've talked about is around you're just sending stuff out on the conveyors and that's kind of how it has to work. Being able to run around then, it will make you feel like, oh, but I just want to build something here because I'm here and I'm pointing at it or whatever. Or like, can I carry the stuff over there? Whereas if it's just stuck on that isometric view, it's more like, oh, okay, no, I'm just in the planning seat. I can send stuff out from my deployment center or whatever. And like, yes, maybe you're like, you can radio signal things. So like, it could be that, oh, the tower's at the right spot on the conveyor to deploy. Okay, send it a signal to like jump off and deploy or whatever. But, yeah, but anyway, I do like that idea of the spatial awareness thing. And well, let's move on then, because maybe that idea can come into my next one.
Okie dokie.
Which is even broader than the last one. But this one I'm definitely thinking of much more in the sort of satisfactory first-person building sort of thing, but with very physical ways of sending all your stuff around. I'm talking springs, ramps, funnels that they go back, almost that all of your getting your resources around is almost like a huge Rube Goldberg machine. I want when this factory is in full motion, I want you to look around and see just like series of things flying through the air because they've gone down the ramp to be fired off a pinball bumper to be caught over there in the funnel, go down.
But you have that sort of thing where they're crossing.
That's it. I want them to be. I want it. Yeah, my ideal situation with this, like what I really got in my head, is the perfectly clockwork factory where there are two streams of things crossing paths in midair, one going, the other going, one going, the other going, like just interlocking with each other as these things fly through the air. But I definitely want them all physically simulated. If you get that timing off, then they will collide in the air and just fall to the ground and whatever, smash everywhere. So yeah, I think expanding on that, just more physically interesting ways to kind of get your resources across the map than just the standard sort of conveyors or trucks or whatever.
I'm going to throw a word out here that is basically, you can take it or leave it.
Okay.
But I think that this is a marble factory.
So, yeah, I think there are
that
definitely
they're all
elements
round
of that.
objects, basically.
So what I was thinking about that is, I was basically thinking that you pack your resources into marbles, basically, into these like round containers.
Okay.
So that you can still have your different resources. And it might be that different types of resources, certain things can be packed into these round things and go down, whatever. I was also thinking, okay, other things are in like pneumatic tubes, like the letter delivery sorts of things. And so they have to have like a different system of things to get around. And that gives you different opportunities for like, going up. Like the round stuff, it's mostly gonna need to be going downhill to get up momentum or whatever. I think you'd have like launches or whatever rather than just basing it solely on getting energy down a hill. But
I was thinking those baseball launchers that have the two, spinning discs that just funk, funk, funk.
Yes,
like you can
definitely. I hadn't thought of that. I was thinking more of like a pinball, like spring thing. But yeah, that makes even more sense that they go through it and it just like gives them that huge velocity and fires them off.
Yeah, I'm imagining that the funnel is sort of like, allowing things to come on down. You can set up timing for, fire this every X number of seconds. But of course,
that could back things up. Like if you're producing too fast, further down the chain. Yeah, definitely. And I think you can set things up. I think there's very little variance I think you want it that when it goes through one of those things, it fires off the exact same physical force and direction pretty much every single time, so that you're not having to put like a huge funnel at the other end to catch the slight variance in direction that they might go coming out of that.
Yeah, because you could go a lot of places like, okay, you need to make sure that the air conditioning isn't going every...
You've got like a fan blowing that's gonna,
just change the course a little bit.
Yeah,
that's why you need such a big
having
funnel.
said that, like, I can see a situation where there are pinball bumpers in midair where it's like you've fired it out of the baseball fire thing, and then you've got a very precise like pinball bumper that changes its direction by 90 degrees because it angles it off, and then it goes into a pit, a fucking, I don't know, a water thing that drains every 5 minutes to send everything through.
So I think weight comes into this, so that each thing is sort of like, okay, if you're sending, I know, I'm gonna go with satisfactory sort of things. Like if you're sending iron out, it's going to be a lot heavier than if you're sending out like the equivalent of caterium or whatever. Yeah. Like just from the fact of like you can't get as much caterium in weight or whatever. Or
it would depend.
You got biomass in this one that is like a lot lighter than.
Yeah, as long as that wasn't going to mess up your things. But I could see an interesting thing where, depending on the weights, as long as you've got an idea of what each weight thing will be, some things are going to go further and some things are going to go less. And so you can have your different collectors at the points that, like, you don't need to filter everything coming down this ramp, because the heavier stuff's going to like not go as far. And so you've got a catcher there ready for things that are iron weighted, that are one ball full of iron, but the biomass is going to go flying further and you've got something else to catch that down the line. Like, it's almost your sorter, but by weight. That's actually kind of cool. That could be really fun.
Yeah, I think a lot of it will have to do with, you got those sort of, I mean, effectively there's going to be a huge marble run in which.
Well, and I was just thinking, I was trying to think of a reason.
Things going down like.
I was trying to think of a reason why you could have big spirals, that where you can see the marbles or the balls going down the things, or like back and forth. I wonder if there's a time-based aspect as well of like, you actually don't want it to get from A to B too quickly. Like, there's a reason that it has to take a minimum amount of time. It's like, oh, we're sending fucking glue and it has to cure or something. Like, I don't know, like some sort of reason, or it has to ferment on the way. So, and maybe that's only for certain materials or certain things that you've built, but it's like, oh, now you've got an excuse to slow things down and make them interesting and fun to watch. As these things drop off something and launch something else up, and yeah,
I can just imagine like when you start realizing that, oh, this factory that you've got, this is all the room that you've actually got. You've just got to make all these things work within
like smaller amounts of space.
It's like, oh, at the start, oh, I've got this whole factory that I can build all this stuff in. It's like, okay, and now we've been told that we need to now process this thing and it needs to reach down this end of the building. And it's like, oh shit. And you can't really change anything that you put in there. Like,
I mean, or at least not without like restarting or, like redoing whole sections of it or something. Yeah, I do like that. You're giving me really good segues here, Trevor, because I think that actually brings me into my third idea.
See, I literally do not know what he's talking about now.
Trevor has no idea what I've come up with. So, talking about limited space, and you sort of inspired me on this one in a bit, because you've been setting up all these nice satisfactory factories where all of the like processing stuff kind of happens under the floors or whatever, and then you just have these nice outputs and things going. My idea was a game where a big part of the gameplay is hiding away the automation, like the dirty, the messy parts of the automation, and just spitting out the results to the people who actually see it. So I'm thinking like some sort of facility, whether it's like a school or a hospital or something, that has different requirements in different rooms or whatever, and then you're building all this stuff that's under the basement that is conveyors and tubes and things to, like, maybe it's like taking the dirty laundry and putting it into the washer, and then it gets spat out onto a conveyor and gets sucked up here and like dried through a dryer or whatever. But all you want the people upstairs to see is dispense, clean laundry, like that's all, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I liked that idea. That does bring in that, I've got limited space to make this work. I can have it spill out above, you know, a bit more. Maybe you get some ugly pipes coming up to actually deliver it to the top floor or whatever, or different things, but you get penalized for that in some way. And so it's all about kind of really presenting this neat and tidy facade over the messy under the floor automation.
I do like the idea, as long as the you almost get penalized for it looking too good underneath. Like
maybe,
because there's something about a let's game it out of absolute spaghetti. It doesn't matter how it is.
I think maybe you could have scores for how spaghetti it is, basically, or like how messy it is. I think you definitely want to let people, because the challenge is going to be, okay, how can I make this really tight and nice and efficient, even downstairs? But I think the gameplay pressures we put on them make that really difficult. Just in where the inputs and outputs are, you've got some that are just fixed, and there's just no real good way to like combine these things or get them past each other without like doing some weird up over the top or like spaghetti-ish sort of directional things.
Okay, there's not enough room in the basement, but there's a crawl space above the room that you can sort of fire something up the wall, across the crawl space, down.
That's it. I definitely want that sort of thing. Like, it's not just, everything's below and you need to get it ahead. It's like hiding things in the walls and
there's a cupboard over here.
Over it.
There's a cupboard here, and it's really quite deep. Just half that, and just. You know, that's a perfect.
I was literally thinking you meant not a built-in cupboard, just a like wardrobe that's sitting there, and someone opens it up and they're just looking into the maw of the machine. Like there's just a conveyor belt because you've cut open the back of the wardrobe.
Well, you could do that as well.
Yeah. No, I like that idea actually. Of it. It's scored based on how. Because I'm thinking you've got sort of a full basic simulation upstairs of the people who are needing this stuff, right? Like, in a way, it's something you don't see a lot in these automation games, but they're part of the system, but they're an uncontrolled part of the system. Where, you do deliver them clean laundry or food or tools or whatever, and you've got no control over how they use them and when they throw them out or when they, when they do soil their laundry or put their dirty plates in or whatever. Like, it's not a fixed, you get X per second. It's based on that simulation that's running sort of upstairs in the actual facility.
The other thing I was thinking is this could be almost a puzzle game of you were given, here's where things need to make it from. Here's where they get entered. Like, just make it work. I
think it definitely is a bit more puzzle-ish. And I think we early on bring in more of the sort of circuitry type stuff, which often in automation games comes in quite a lot later. And Satisfactory doesn't really do anything with that at all, I don't think. Have they done anything in the later tiers with like detecting things and having that? You
can have smart splitters and that sort of stuff where you can do literally if you get this, send it over here, send everything else down, overflow over here.
Okay. I'm thinking things more like, if there's, 3 plates on this sensor, then trigger the trapdoor that sends it down and starts processing it or whatever, right? Like, and also has a connection to the next phase to like turn it on or different things like that, where it's more about, different sensors that then trigger other things. Cause I think that would make more sense because it's a much more reactive automation that you're building. It's not, the inputs to your automation are less predictable. And so for it to be efficient, you kind of need to be able to sense things and trigger things based on that.
Yeah. I do like the idea of like an individual level could be, okay, we need to get the dirty laundry, wash it and send it out over here. Yeah. You set that up and then they go, okay, that's going really, really well. What we now need to do is, while you're washing that laundry, we need to use that water to like wash these dishes. Yeah. So the dishes are going to come down through this thing, go onto a conveyor, and then we need the clean dishes over here. And they just add little things as they go. And the idea is that it's just, this is the next thing you need to just make it fit within your section. Okay. The water, the extra excess water can actually be used to fill these toilets over here. Yep. So take the water out of here and put it up here. Oh, now we need some of that water for the garden. So therefore, you need to siphon some of it off, go over here. And finally you're building this whole thing up. And that's just one level. And it's like, and then your character goes into the next building.
I think that works well as like a campaign mode. I definitely want just a sandboxy sort of thing as well. Or maybe it's just that the last level is like everything's unlocked. It's like a huge fucking prison or something. I don't know if I'd want to do a prison, but like I'm trying to think of what would be really this large building up above that has many, many different needs. That then you've sort of got free reign to solve it however you want, and you just want to get it all working efficiently. But I definitely do like that idea of introducing things more slowly and bit by bit to teach sort of how all these systems work together. And I think a big part of it needs to, I want it to be, I don't want it to just be like, oh, well, this room has, there's the laundry chute that you eventually, hook the laundry conveyor up to. I want that to be even more, customizable, where you've got even potentially different levels of sort of clean facades. Like the first one you get just like spews laundry out into the room, clean laundry or something out into the room. It's like, well, this is messy, but it's cheap and it gets it there. And then the next one is like a dumbwaiter sort of thing where they see it pull up, but they're still seeing the pulleys and stuff, but at least it's there neat and folded. And then the like super high tech last one is a beautifully finished thing that has lights on it or whatever, and they, open the door to it and the laundry's just there and it's all cleanly pressed and steamed or whatever. And so it's basically, you're getting to the point where as far as all the people upstairs are concerned, it's all magic. It just works magically. Just whatever they need is there when they need it, but you scratch below the surface and like view your side of things, and it's just this it's this massive machine of things working in all these different ways.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. Okay, I don't really want to finish there, so we're going to do one more thing. We're going to go 3, 2, 1 movie.
Okay. That's fair. For those who haven't listened, this is just us getting a random movie each, and we're going to make a game design either based on the title or just the general idea of the movie. Mm-hmm. Show me what's on tonight, Trevor.
Phantoms. Because as we know, Ben Affleck was the bomb in Phantoms.
The bomb.
In the peaceful town of Snowfield, Colorado, something evil has wiped out the community. And now it's up to a group of people to stop it, or at least get out of Snowfield alive.
Ooh. Well, the movie I got, 1995's Major Payne. One of the Wayans people.
Yeah.
I don't know which one.
Damon.
Is it Damon Wayans? Yeah.
Yeah.
Major Benson Winifred Payne is being discharged from the Marines. He's a killing machine, but the wars of the world are no longer fought on the battlefield. And so he basically is yelling at kids at his school, or military school.
So Phantoms, I know, I kind of like the idea of waking up and it's just this snow-covered, beautiful, serene sort of thing, and you're the last person alive in the community, basically. It's as you're walking through the town, like you're seeing blood-stained snow that's sort of around you. It's sort of like an investigatory game in the fact that you are literally the only person left alive, and you're not sure why you're the only one, and you're trying
to figure out why.
You're picking up, the occasional phone that has like
text messages and things
text messages or voice messages that were left.
Yeah, I like that. Like a bit of a walking sim sort of thing, maybe with a bit more investigative sort of stuff where you're actually sort of trying to solve in some way. Or it could just be given to you via exposition as you go through, like, and you figure this out based on environmental storytelling and stuff. Do you do maybe a bit of a Firewatchy sort of thing where at some points you have someone that you're communicating with, or do you think you try to keep it? I mean, obviously that takes away a little bit from being the only person in the town, but I'm just trying to think of how you keep. Yeah.
First half, you need to be alone. It's just I think there's more tension in the fact that, like, you're hearing things going through these houses and, things are being moved, like, while you're there. You walk into a room and there's a vent that's obviously perfectly pressed up against. Yep. You walk into a room, you walk out and the vent is, like, laying down on the ground, and you heard that noise as you were searching stuff. And it's just these little horror things elements. just enough in the background that you don't know what's going on.
Just make it unsettling.
You don't have to see anything. You can just like be experiencing these things, and you can actually have it that, you know, there's someone else alive in the town, and they're afraid that you're going to, you know, sort of jump out and get them.
They think you're a ghost.
Or they think that you're a whatever the hell this is.
Yeah, whatever's happened.
Because I kind of like the idea of what if it was something came through the town, wiped out the community, and then left.
Right. Yeah, it's not that there's anything there stalking you now. It's just you are there in the aftermath and you survived for some reason.
And, you know, nothing in this town works. Like, none of the cars are working. You know, they're all completely frozen over and all this sort of stuff. And
did we do something like that once where, like, the entire Earth had been wiped out by something in a just neutral way?
Maybe.
I don't know. Anyway, it's fine. It doesn't matter. What this is actually giving me vibes of, have you come across these, I think there's a series of games, or at least, I don't know if they're by the same people or just being released in a similar genre, of these like PS1 aesthetic horror games. So I know there's one where you play like a security guard, essentially, like having to check on cars that come through and letting them through. But from what I gathered from something I read lately, that's sort of related to another game that's like a bigger thing where you're maybe working inside the building that game is set up outside or something.
Yeah.
But I could see that working with a bit of that PS1 aesthetic, like not full on, like these games.
It does have a very Silent Hill feel to it, doesn't it?
Yeah, and you don't have to go full on like, only using tech that would have run on PS1s. It's more just about like, it's relatively low poly, you know, you use certain post-processing effects to improve it, but like the actual assets themselves are fairly low res and that sort of thing. But it gives you some really nice vibes.
Half-Life 1 sort of.
Yeah, you could do, yeah.
Because there's something about that aesthetic that I really do like. The low-res textures on the buildings and that sort of stuff, but still made with, you know, current tech. And
yeah, and if you give it enough care, it's sort of this thing where it's like, this evokes a certain type of building with it not actually having all the details of what that building would have. But the textures are good enough at that level.
You don't have to go to the level of, okay, a building like this would have junk everywhere. You don't have to go to that level. You can go to the level of, there's a shelf that is sort of tipped over and some stuff is on the floor, but you don't have to go to the level.
You don't have to have every little detail in there. And
I remember going through What Remains of Edith Finch and going, oh my God, the amount of detail that they had to put into this place. Like, I couldn't do it. Like, as a
developer, like having to
as a developer, I'm like, oh my God, that's someone that
I know. Can you imagine
give that busy work off to someone else.
Their list of assets of just things they needed for every single room in games like that. No, I agree.
And I'm like, I don't want it to be bare bones, but also you got to almost look at, I keep on coming back to like a Metal Gear Solid where it felt like the entire world was filled out and had enough stuff, but really it was very basic.
Very empty. Yeah. There's
just enough that it needed.
There's a certain amount you can get away with that sort of aesthetic, and it does lend itself to, you know, hopefully making things easier to build.
I mean, my mind immediately goes to VR just because, like, that walking simulator in VR of hearing something behind you.
I wonder how it feels to be in VR in a PS1 era game. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think that could be interesting. I've never played a VR game that has that level of like changes to the sort of general aesthetic, or like that's a retro-ish game in a sense. That could be interesting.
Could be.
Cool.
I think that's about it.
Yeah, I think we will finish up there. If you would like to find our previous episodes online, go to podchaser.com/Fitstorm. If you'd like to find our previous episodes offline, I don't know, ask someone to burn you a CD and put it in your Discman.
I'm sure someone's got a disk drive.
Perfectly valid way to listen. But yeah, go to Podchaser, leave us a review.
If you like this song that we play at the start and end of each episode, that song is called Mount Defiance of the album Containment Failure by the band Kuradust. Check it out.
That's right. So thank you again for joining us this week on Bitstorm. I'm Ben Slinger.
I'm Trevor Scott.
And I'm Rube Goldberg. The original Rube Goldberg machine was meant to deliver toast into my face.